As Akaza's body finally fades away, he holds Koyuki tightly in his arms. When his end comes, he falls into hell, just like every demon does. But this time, he is not alone. Koyuki, Keizo, and his father follow him, choosing to stay by his side so he will never be abandoned again. Back in the real world, Tanjiro watches Akaza disappear. He lets out a long breath and quietly says, "It's over." The moment the fight ends, his body gives up, and he collapses from pure exhaustion. Giyu, barely able to stay on his feet, slowly sits down beside him to rest. Soon after, a crow arrives and announces the news. Tanjiro Kamado and Giyu Tomioka have defeated Upper Moon 3, Akaza. Both demon slayers lose consciousness soon after, completely drained from the battle. When Kokushibo hears of Akaza's death, he becomes furious. He believes Akaza had the potential to become far stronger, but chose to abandon that path. In Kokushibo's eyes, that choice led directly to his death. Enraged, he destroys the area around him and coldly states that Akaza died before he could ever face him, and that such an end was pathetic. Elsewhere, Doma senses Akaza's death as well. For a brief moment, he feels something strange about it, something almost human, but he quickly ignores the feeling and turns his attention back to the battle in front of him. He looks at Kanao, wounded, but standing firm, and casually asks for her name. Alone and determined, Kanao faces Upper Moon 2 by herself. Doma doesn't care whether she is related to Shinobu or not. After all, to him, all young women are simply delicious. He then mentions an interesting fact. Akaza never ate women, not even once. This is strange because women provide more nutrients and could have made him much stronger. Yet Akaza refused to kill or consume them, and Muzan allowed this exception. Doma pretends to be sad, calling Akaza his best friend. Kanao immediately shuts him down with a cold response. She tells him that demons cannot feel real emotions, especially someone like Upper Moon 2. She explains that Kane didn't pity him because of his strength, but because of how empty he was inside. Mocking him, she asks why someone like him was even born. That's when Doma finally snaps. Calling her a bully, he becomes serious and launches a sudden attack from behind, aiming straight for her neck. But Kanao reacts instantly, dodging the strike and slashing his stomach instead. For the first time, Doma is truly surprised. He realizes that Kanao has grown far stronger and faster, possibly even stronger than Shinobu herself. Kanao begins to realize the overwhelming difference in power between her and Doma. She knew her body was at its limit, and that she couldn't move without getting more injuries, while Doma could easily regenerate, unlike her, but still refuses to back down. She attacks with all her strength, knowing the odds are against her. Doma, intrigued by her determination, he blocks all her attacks with ease, yet is still impressed by her determination. He notes that her sharp, precise movements come from her exceptional eyesight. That's how she knew his next move, showing that she's smart and has the skill of a swordswoman, unlike Shinobu, and decides to target her eyes. He lunges, but Kanao narrowly dodges, leaping back just in time. Doma quickly takes control of the battle, overwhelming her with speed and precision. Unable to keep up, Kanao struggles to close the distance. The only thing she can do is back down. Then, in a sudden move, Doma knocks her sword away, leaving her momentarily frozen in shock. He calmly sticks the sword into the ground like a trophy, and strikes again, giving her no room to escape. Kanao takes the hit, bloodied but still standing. Just when it seems like she's done for, Inosuke bursts onto the scene with a wild scream, turning the fight into 2 versus 1 and giving Kanao a chance to breathe. Inosuke, with his usual reckless energy, realizes he's facing Upper Moon 2. He grins, thinking that defeating Doma might make him a Hashira. Seeing Kanao bleeding heavily, he asks if she's okay, adding that Shinobu wouldn't be happy to see her like this. But when Kanao looks down in silence, Inosuke understands. Shinobu is gone. Doma calmly confirms it, revealing that he absorbed Shinobu into his body, meaning she's not dead yet, and she won't feel any pain, which makes her happy, along with all the women he absorbed. Inosuke flashes back to how kind she was to him, how gently she cared for him. Fury builds in him, and he roars that he'll make Doma pay. Charging in, Inosuke's wild, unpredictable moves surprise Doma, especially his flexible body. Doma adds that his movements and techniques are messed up, yet he still makes them work somehow with his chipped blades and his weird sword style. Without realizing it, Inosuke snatches Kanao's sword back from Doma and tosses it to her, without him even realizing it, which makes him a little angry. Doma counterattacks, but Inosuke, from a distance, slashes his eyes. "I aimed for your neck," he says, "but I'm still perfecting that move." Even with his arm twisted horribly, Inosuke resets it, completely unfazed. Kanao watches in shock. Doma then removes Inosuke's mask. Puzzled, he remembers that face from somewhere. The Upper Moon 2, Doma, is a demon who remembers everything from his past, even after becoming a demon. However, he starts talking about Inosuke's mother, saying she was treated badly by her husband and her own mother, so she run to Doma Place. Before she met Doma, she was around 17 to 18 years old and already had a baby. With no parents or siblings, she had no safe place to go except his. When he saw her, she was beaten so badly that he couldn't even see her face clearly. But when Doma healed her, he noticed how kind and beautiful her face looked, and that left an impression on him. Inosuke didn't believe him at first, saying he had no mother, as he was raised by boars. until Doma sang a song. It was the same song his mother used to sing to him when he was little. Doma says he never planned to kill her. He wanted her to stay with him until she died naturally. But one day, she saw him eating people and realized he was a demon. Scared and heartbroken, Kotoha ran away with Inosuke in her arms. When she reached a cliff with no way out, she dropped Inosuke into the river below to save his life. And that when we see Doma killing her and feeling sorry for Inosuke, thinking he probably gonna die. Hearing all this, Inosuke finally remembers his true mother, and with tears and rage, he promises to show Doma what real hell looks like before ending him. After Doma, the Upper Moon too, speaks about Inosuke's mother, how unhappy she was with her life and ran away to him. Inosuke, overwhelmed with rage, charges in, while Kanao quietly moves behind Doma, aiming for his neck. Yet Doma still control the fight. Suddenly, he summons an ice clone just as powerful as himself, saying he's too busy after Akaza's death and leaves them to deal with it. Impressed by Inosuke's sharp senses, though he believes he's simply lucky to be born with it as he was raised in forest, as he decides to make them fight using their full techniques, so he can learn from them and use it as an advantage to kill them afterward. Doma creates 5 more ice dolls to ensure their defeat, as both Inosuke and Kanao struggle to fight back before he go away, thinking he won't get his revenge if he wastes time struggling against those ice dolls that aren't even real. Inosuke suffers deep slashes and starts to panic, but Kanao urges him to hold on just a little longer, and Doma starts asking himself why she says that as he feels something off, but he turns back, deciding to leave. Then, suddenly, Doma's face begins to melt as an unknown poison begins working on him. He stumbles, falling to one knee. In confusion, he sees Shinobu's face with evil smile, meaning she did something to him when he absorbed her. After Doma starts melting, his body started breaking apart while he couldn't even stand. He knew that Shinobu had done something to him, but he didn't sense any poison circulating in his body. We see a flashback of Shinobu explaining her plan to Kanao. She knew Doma would absorb her, and even if he wouldn't, Shinobu insisted on being eaten and killed by Upper Moon 2. So she filled her body with a strong poison made from wisteria flowers, which weakens demons. She had been doing this for over a year, and by the time of the fight, her body held 37 kilograms of poison, more than enough to work on it. However, she refused to let Kanao be the sacrifice, saying she wouldn't make it in time and couldn't let her be the test subject because she didn't know what side effects the poison might cause. Most importantly, she didn't know if it would even work on the Upper Moons or Muzan. By the way, it was the same poison she used on her sword, but in a much smaller amount. Back in the fight, Doma struggles to heal, and his ice dolls begin to break apart. Inosuke and Kanao rush in to cut his neck, but Doma uses his blood demon art to push them back. Kanao remembers why Shinobu gave up her life, yet still worried, and warned her about a special move that could make her go blind. But Kanao doesn't hesitate. She uses the Breath of Flowers, final form, to dodges the ice doll and aims for Doma's neck. Even as her body starts freezing, she keeps going. Inosuke throws his swords into Doma's head, and together, they finally cut off his neck. After Kanao cuts off Doma's head, his body starts to fall apart. He feels nothing. No fear, no regret, not even sadness about dying in such a pathetic way by Shinobu, whom he couldn't even call a swordswoman since she didn't have the strength to cut off heads, and Inosuke, who didn't even have the foundation for swordsmanship. He still thinks maybe he can regenerate like Muzan or Akaza, but his body keeps crumbling, while thinking he wasn't afraid of dying or annoyed by losing to them, and that he had always been like that. He remembers how, as a child, his mother killed his father and then poisoned herself. Even then, he didn't feel anything. He was only a human back then, thinking about how dirty they made the room with their blood and hating the smell. So he needed to move on quickly, with no emotions or loneliness. At 20, he became a demon and lived for many years, but never felt emotions. Shinobu appears, saying she can now rest in peace. Her plan to poison Doma worked, with help from Tamayo. She says everyone is winning, so she doesn't regret working with her. Doma, for the first time, feels something. Love. He asks her to come to hell with him, but her answer is quietly clear. Back in the scene, Inosuke cries after realizing his mother loved him, and that Tanjiro was right. In the other way, Kanao looks for any piece of Shinobu's hair, remembering her sisters and parents. Then, for the first time, Kanao start crying, missing both of them deeply. After Tanjiro and Giyu wins against the Upper Moon 3, Akaza, Tanjiro wakes up to see Giyu start preparing for the next battle, as the crow informs them that Inosuke and Kanao have defeated the Upper Moon 2, Doma. Tanjiro reflects on how everyone is doing an incredible job, defeating the Upper Moons one by one, getting closer to defeating Muzan. Meanwhile, in the other side, we see Mitsuri and Obanai are facing the Upper Moon 4 Nakimi that already got replaced. Mitsuri attacks, but Nakimi dodges her moves in a way that feels embarrassing. Nakimi tries to separate them, but Mitsuri starts to understand the demon's power, avoiding all her traps with her insane flexibility and movement. She dodges her and attacks again, but once more, Nakimi dodges her effortlessly. Elsewhere, in the Infinity Castle, Tokito and Himejima are running, getting closer to Muzan's place, when suddenly Tokito gets separated from Himejima by Nakimi's power, facing alone the strongest of the Upper Moons, Kokushibo, Upper Moon 1, who had been waiting for a demon slayer to come to his place, and claimed that Tokito seemed familiar to him, while Tokito was in shock seeing seeing himself alone against the strongest upper moon in Muzan's army. As Tokito faces the upper moon one, Kokushibo, the strongest upper moon in Muzan's army, Tokito was in shock and feels fear for the first time. Kokushibo sees through him and asks for his name. While sensing something familiar, Tokito introduces himself, and Kokushibo reveals that Tokito is his descendant from the Tsugikuni family. Shocked, he quickly controls his fear, impressing Kokushibo for being able to calm himself in a short amount of time and praising his mental strength. However, Tokito attacks him from below using his second form, but Kokushibo dodges him in an instant, as if he weren't there, saying the Tsugikuni name has died, though the bloodline lives on in Tokito. Tokito refuses to accept this, activating his mark and unleashing a new technique that surprises Kokushibo, saying he didn't see it before, so it means he created it by himself. Intrigued, Kokushibo unshields his sword and uses the Breath of the Moon's first form to cut off Tokito's arm. Tokito, shocked to see a demon using a original breath technique, stops the bleeding with his hair and attacks again. Kokushibo, impressed, retaliates by pinning Tokito to the wall with his sword, deciding to turn Tokito into a demon. Kokushibo decides to turn Tokito into a demon and stops his bleeding to keep him alive. He says that Tokito's arm would grow back if he became a demon, so there's nothing to fear. In this generation, no demon fights properly using breath technique as himself, so the idea of turning Tokito into a demon moves his heart. Of course, that would only happen if Muzan accepted him into his army. Meanwhile, Genya hides nearby, scared, holding his shotgun, and points it at Kokushibo. But suddenly, Kokushibo appears behind him and cuts off his arm. Genya pulls out his sword to fight, but Kokushibo cuts it too. Knowing Genya has eaten demons before, he slices Genya in half, saying he met someone like him before and killed him in the same way. But Genya is still alive, so Kokushibo thinks he'll die for sure if he cuts off his head like any other demon. Then, the most awaited scene happens. Sanemi arrives, protecting his little brother. He says he killed their mother for Genya's sake, so he could live a peaceful, normal life with a family of his own, and he'll make sure no demons will get in his way. Fueled by rage, screaming that he won't forgive him for what he did to his little brother, Sanemi attacks Kokushibo, dodging his strike and releasing his first form. Kokushibo jumps high, avoiding Sanemi's attack with no effort at all. Kokushibo draws while Sanemi mocks him, calling his blade disgusting. As Sanemi dodges Kokushibo's fifth form, Kokushibo claims that Sanemi's physique and mental ability are at their peak. However, Sanemi was focused on Kokushibo's breath technique and he starts analyzing it. He admits he can't even blink after seeing Kokushibo's speed and power. It's no surprise Tokito lost. Kokushibo is not only a demon, but also a master of both blood demon art and the breath technique, and he heals faster than anyone. With all those skills combined, it's no wonder he's the strongest upper moon. Sanemi uses his second form, showing off his flexibility, and Kokushibo notes that Sanemi is at his peak. Their clash continues with intense techniques. As Sanemi attacks Kokushibo with his sword, he blocks it. Then, in a sudden move, Sanemi strikes from below with Genya's sword at his legs, yet Kokushibo still dodges effortlessly. But Sanemi starts bleeding, showing he's struggling to keep up. Kokushibo unleashes his sixth form and slashes him badly. Sanemi is left bloody, and Kokushibo warns him not to move or his organs might spill out. But then Kokushibo senses something strange. Sanemi starts talking about his rare blood, which is so powerful it makes demons dizzy and drunk. As Kokushibo begins to feel it, Sanemi charges in for a counterattack. Sanemi first noticed his special blood when his demon mother's movement slowed after hitting him. He realized his blood could weaken demons and decided to hunt them alone with reckless plans and luck. One day, he met Kumano, who introduced him to the Demon Slayer Corps. Sanemi realized how suicidal his plan was, and the only reason he was still alive was because his blood made demons drunk and easier to defeat. After Kumano died fighting Lower Moon 1, Sanemi became a Hashira. At first, Sanemi hated the Ubuyashiki family, thinking they just gave orders and stayed safe, giving commands without risking their lives, and that pisses him off. But when he met Oyakata-sama, he saw his kindness. Oyakata apologized for Sanemi's loss, claiming he tried to fight too, but couldn't swing the sword more than 10 times before losing control, and said he wished he could fight too, but his illness stopped him. Kanai told Sanemi that Oyakata remembers every demon slayer who died. Shocked, Sanemi received a letter from Kumano, saying he wanted to protect those he loved until the end. Sanemi realized he felt the same way about Genya. Back in battle, Kokushibo drives Sanemi's sword into the ground and aims for his neck. Sanemi tries to use his brother's shotgun, but fails. Just as Kokushibo strikes, Sanemi vanishes, and suddenly, Gyomei, the strongest Hashira, arrives. After Gyomei enters the battle, he ordered Sanemi to back off and stitch his wounds while he took him on, and Sanemi immediately followed his command, apologizing at the same time. Kokushibo smiles, saying he hasn't seen someone like him in 300 years. While using his transparent world, he realized that Gyomei's body had been refined to its utmost limits. As he gets serious, the air shifts, and Gyomei starts aura farming while swinging his weapon. He throws his chained weapons with precision, surprising Kokushibo. He struggles to use his moon breathing and only able to avoid his weapon, which went all over him in less than a second. putting Kokushibo in a hard time, while Gyomei uses his rock-breathing second form, trapping him in chains. Unable to break free, he managed to slip, but his hair gets cut, aimed straight for his neck. But he throws his weapons again, showing incredible control, while avoiding Kokushibo's deadly sword. As Kokushibo thinks, the chains wrap around his sword and snap it in half. Both use their breath techniques, shaking the entire area with power. Kokushibo regenerates, but Gyomei gets a slash across his face. As Kokushibo regenerates his sword too, he claims that his attacks are useless because he can easily regenerate, unlike a normal, pitiful human. He says he wanted to save this power for Muzan, but now he has nothing to lose. His mark appears, and his rage grows even stronger. Tokito breaks free from the sword Kokushibo used to pin him to the wall and stops the bleeding. But he knew he was in horrible condition and wouldn't be that helpful to them because of the wounds that would take a long time to stop bleeding. That was due to his lack of physical strength, unlike Uzui. Thinking that if he was going to die, he needed to at least defeat Upper Moon One by doing something useful for the others and leaving a fire in those still alive to win the battle. Genya, still alive, asks him for a piece of Kokushibo's hair that Gyomei managed to cut off. As Gyomei's mark glows, Kokushibo reflects on how he's probably 27, past the usual death limit of 25 for marked demon slayers. He laments that all his strength and effort will vanish tonight, but Gyomei calmly replies that every marked slayer knows this and accepts it. He says how pathetic Kokushibo's opinion is while forcing his worldview on others. Then Gyomei says that Kokushibo did lie about one thing, and that there's one exception. Someone once lived past 25 with a mark. Kokushibo seems shaken. Suddenly, he attacks Gyomei from behind in rage, unleashing wild slashes. Meanwhile, Sanemi finishes healing and awakens his own mark. He jumps into the battle, making it 2 versus 1. Kokushibo is impressed that they use different breaths, but still fight in perfect sync. Tokito helps Genya eat Kokushibo's hair, and he regenerates quickly, feeling the Upper Moon One Kokushibo's power surge in his blood. That feels great. He then thinks this power comes just from eating a little of his hair, and wonders how much power he would gain if he ate the piece of Kokushibo's flesh that Gyomei cut off at that moment. Suddenly, he hears Muzan's voice inside his head, asking Kokushibo how many Hashira he has killed and ordering him not to let any demon slayer come to his place yet. Genya felt that something was wrong with his body if he could hear Muzan's voice just by eating his hair, and wondered what would happen if he ate a piece of his blade. Back in the fight, Kokushibo understands that these two are the strongest Hashira, especially Gyomei. Even blindness doesn't weaken him. Kokushibo tries to break Sanemi's sword first, but Sanemi thrusts it into the ground and cuts off some of his hair. Kokushibo is shocked that Sanemi can still move like that, even after taking all those slashes. Even with the mark, Gyomei joins in and slices off Kokushibo's ear. The two Hashira fight in perfect sync, landing blows using both breath techniques and tearing Kokushibo's kimono. Just as they press forward, slashes appear from nowhere. Kokushibo then reveals his sword's true form and gets serious, declaring that once he kills them, defeating the rest of the demon slayers will be easy. As Kokushibo unleashes his sword's true form, he claims that if he defeats Gyomei and Sanemi, who are the strongest Hashira in the demon slayer corps, everyone else will be defeated easily, and the entire corps will fall in an instant. He cuts off Sanemi's fingers, and as he panics, fearing he might lose his arms without Gyomei's help, he realizes his rare blood has lost its effect. As his blood works more on the stronger demons than the weaker ones, Kokushibo's strength still increases. What's more, Kokushibo swings his large sword so fast that it makes Sanemi unsure whether he'll be able to dodge the next attack or if his sword will be broken into pieces. Meanwhile, Ubuyashiki's daughter asks to send backup, proposing to send Giyu and Tanjiro to Kokushibo's place since they are the closest demon slayers to him right now. But the boy refuses, trusting them to defeat Upper Moon One, and saying that Giyu and Tanjiro need to focus on finding Muzan's place before he regenerates. Back to the fight, Kokushibo unleashes his 7th to 10th forms, nearly killing Sanemi, who couldn't move after dodging all those crazy slashes, yet his wounds prevented him from standing up in time. But Tokito saves him just in time. Genya, panicking, wonders how he can help. Then he remembers Tanjiro's words saying when the strongest clash, they ignore the weakest. Realizing he's unnoticed, Genya takes the chance to shift the battle's outcome. With newfound resolve, Genya makes a bold move. He eats the piece of Kokushibo's sword to help create their path to victory. As the fight with Upper Moon One Kokushibo continues, Gyomei starts to panic, asking how fast Kokushibo can unleash his techniques quickly as if he knows their next moves before even taking them, and questioned what this demon could actually see, trying to understand. He said that anything demons can do, humans can also do, and that breath techniques make humans equal to demons. So he shouldn't have a problem unlocking the skill Kokushibo had to see all their movements. so he realizes that he might be seeing something others can't. But by observing closely, Gyomei finally unlocked the transparent world too, just like Tanjiro and Kokushibo, and started seeing his blood flow, muscles, and every movement Kokushibo made. At that moment, the three Hashiras launch a coordinated attack. While Kokushibo prepares to strike back, Gyomei throws a ball, hitting Kokushibo's hand to stop him, while Sanemi distracts him with his wind techniques. Tokito drives his blade into Kokushibo's stomach. At that moment, he realizes that Tokito and Gyomei can now see the transparent world just like him. As he prepares to attack them, Genya appears behind holding a shotgun that looks like Kokushibo's sword, his eyes and mark now similar too. He recalls Tokito's words who ask him to shoot both of them if needed. He starts to panic, but Genya makes his decision and shot them at the end. As Genya shot them both, the bullet pierces Kokushibo. While he realizes Genya's pressure changed, he ate his sword and hair. Suddenly, a tree appears from Kokushibo's body. It's Genya's blood demon art, inherited from his own cells. Frozen in place, he feels something he hasn't in 400 years. Fear. A flashback begins. 400 years ago, under a blood moon, Kokushibo sees his brother Yoriichi again, now an old man, over 80. Shocked, Kokushibo can't understand how a marked swordsman lived past 25, yet he's still alive. Yoriichi, eyes full of sorrow, says it's heart-wrenching, and Kokushibo prepares to strike if Yoriichi draws his blade towards him. But he was confused and wouldn't attack him unless Yoriichi drew his blade and pointed it at him. Yet all that confusion disappeared the moment Yoriichi took his sword and prepared to cut him down. But as Yoriichi takes his stance, the air grows heavy. He warns Kokushibo that he's coming, and in one slash, he managed to cut his neck clean through. Kokushibo regenerates, filled with rage. Yoriichi hadn't lost any speed. His power still terrifying even after 80 long years. Kokushibo prepares for the next strike that Kokushibo definitely know it gonna kill him, but it never comes. Yoriichi dies standing, a normal death of old age. After Yoriichi died standing, Kokushibo realized that if Yoriichi had lived just a few more seconds, he would have died. He claims that he became a demon so he could live longer, yet still continued to taste that bitterness for hundreds of years. Knowing the strongest swordsman is gone now, he believed no one could defeat him. But that means he won't have an honorable death now that Yoriichi, the strongest swordsman in Demon Slayer history, is gone. It also means Kokushibo chose to keep winning until he achieved the perfect form. Back to the battle, he screams, slashing the Hashira's back. Tokito is cut in half like Gojo, and Genya is slashed at the top, and he generate blades all over his body. However, the Hashira's aims for his head, and Tokito's sword turns red, searing Kokushibo's insides. Sanemi pierces his neck as Genya, while dying, uses a blood demon art to hold Kokushibo still. He tries to cut him in half, but his technique fails. Gyomei throws his weapon at his head, but it doesn't work. He screams, dodging Gyomei's second attack with his sword. After that, he realizes his sword techniques aren't coming out because the tree on his back absorbed his blood, and Tokito's red blade that looks like Yoriichi's sword burning him inside. In that moment, Sanemi jumps, using his sword to push Gyomei's weapon down onto Kokushibo's head, as both weapons glow red, and finally, Kokushibo's head is destroyed. After Kokushibo reflects to Yoriichi on how their breathing technique will soon vanish, he remembers how he always smiled, always optimistic, and that's what makes him feel disgust. Michikatsu once told him that their breaths had no successors and would soon vanish, but Yoriichi smiled. Michikatsu didn't understand what was funny about that, even though he was proud that their generation was going to be the only special one. Back in the fight, after Genya and the Hashira managed to cut off Kokushibo's head, he thinks about how this new generation, without the original sun breathing, still managed to turn their blades red and fight with unorthodox styles. Refusing to lose, he stops his head bleeding. At that moment, Gyomei yells not to let him go, and to continue slashing him until he vanishes, but he regenerates in a monstrous form, thinking he conquers death now, except the sun. As he sees his reflection in Sanemi's blade, realizing how ugly he's become chasing the perfect form, he remembers how Yoriichi wanted to be the second strongest samurai just behind him. Then, the part where Muichiro stabbed him begins to crumble, while Sanemi and Gyomei attack again, destroying his upper body. Struggling to regenerate, Kokushibo begins to give up, realizing, in the end, all he ever wanted was to be like his little brother, Yoriichi. Kokushibo always wanted to be like his twin brother, Yoriichi. At birth, Yoriichi had a strange mark on his head, and their father wanted to kill him, because twins cause successor conflicts, but their mother stopped it. Still, the difference in treatment was clear. Yoriichi lived poorly, yet always stayed close to their mother. Hugging her from her left side, Michikatsu thought that Yoriichi was childish and pitiful. One day, Kokushibo gave him a flute, thinking he didn't see him smiling before, and he didn't speak until he was 7, making everyone think he was deaf. Still, Michikatsu always thought he was different. However, while training, Yoriichi always watched Michikatsu practicing his swings. Later, while training with a swordmaster, Yoriichi asked to join. The teacher gave him a small wooden sword and showed him the basics. Shockingly, Yoriichi defeated him with just 4 strikes, even though Kokushibo had trained hard and never landed a hit on their master. Yoriichi then said he didn't want to be a samurai. He hated hurting others. When Kokushibo asked how he was so strong, Yoriichi explained to only follows his opponent's bones, muscles, and blood flow, what we now know as the see-through world. At that moment, Kokushibo realized Yoriichi was born with rare talent, his eyes, his mark, but Yoriichi didn't want it. He just wanted to play with his brother. That's when Kokushibo knew the power he desperately wanted was wasted on someone who didn't even want to use it. After Yoriichi defeated their teacher, Kokushibo feared the teacher would report it, and by morning, their father would switch their roles. He started giving up on his dream of becoming the strongest samurai. But at 3 a.m., Yoriichi quietly came to say goodbye, informing him that their mother had passed away and he was leaving now. He showed to Kokushibo the flute he had gifted him long ago, saying it always reminded him of his brother and he'll take care of it all the time. Yoriichi thought of the flute as his brother, and no matter how far apart they were, they would not lose heart. He claimed he would work hard every day, but that was Yoriichi's vision only, as Kokushibo had given it just like trash, but Yoriichi had treasured it. He didn't understand why Yoriichi was so happy, but he couldn't speak a single word. He only watched as Yoriichi bowed his head low, and with a satisfied face, left the place carrying only the baggage he had brought with him. The next morning, Kokushibo found their mother's diary. He found out that Yoriichi had known of his mother's illness, so he had always stayed by her left side not for comfort but to support and take care of her. As Yoriichi had left that time to protect Kokushibo's position, he continued following his dream. He remembered now that Yoriichi wasn't childish or pitiful. It meant that Yoriichi saw something that even Michikatsu couldn't. Realizing this, Kokushibo's heart twisted, and from that moment he started hating him, wishing him to disappear forever. After Yoriichi leaves, Kokushibo starts living a peaceful life for 10 years. He gets married and has 2 kids, but he feels bored with this life. One day, Kokushibo and his teammates were attacked by a demon, and Yoriichi appeared, easily defeating the demon. Kokushibo's hate grew again as Yoriichi apologized for being late. Seeing Yoriichi save him by killing the demon so easily made him realize that Yoriichi's skills were nothing compared to when he was a child, as he had improved even more. However, Kokushibo wanted to be stronger than Yoriichi again, so he abandoned his family and joined the demon hunters. He trained hard, but still couldn't reach Yoriichi's level. When he got the same mark as Yoriichi, he couldn't use the breath of the sun. His technique was named the breath of the moon. Suddenly, all other marked people start dying. Kokushibo knew he didn't have time to catch up, and the golden age of demon hunters will vanish soon. One night, Muzan appears, offering him immortality to perfect his techniques, so he decides to become a demon. Back to the sense when Kokushibo ended Yoriichi's life, he found out that he's still carrying the old flute. He starts crying, realizing that Yoriichi's legacy lives on, while he had abandoned everything: his family, humanity, and dreams. He feels his life was meaningless compared to Yoriichi's enduring his mark and power to Tanjiro, and questioned why he even born hoping for an answer from him. After Kokushibo dies, Himejima orders Sanemi to stop, but he doesn't because he was already passed out. Impressed by his willpower, Himejima moves Sanemi next to Genya, who was cut in half, so Genya could know his brother is alive. He finds Tokito dead, and he started thanking him, saying he respected both of them, especially Tokito, who was the youngest demon slayer to become a Hashira, closes his eyes and promises to defeat Muzan for him so he can rest in peace. In the afterlife, Tokito meets his brother, who cries, calling his death pointless. He could run away because he was only 14 and no one would blame him. Instead, he chose to fight, claiming he was born to be happy, and asking him if he wasn't happy too when the 4 of them lived together, and said he didn't care what others said, but only he shouldn't call his death pointless. Tokito cries too, saying he lived happily, fought to protect his friends, and had no regrets. His brother admits he didn't want him to die. Back in the real world, Sanemi wakes up screaming as Genya crumbles away like any demon. Genya confesses his feelings, and Sanemi, crying, says he never hated him and only wanted to protect him. Genya tells him he's the sweetest brother and vanishes. Sanemi screams to God not to take him, while Himejima stands behind him, telling him to raise his head and the fight isn't over until they kill Muzan. After the crow informs Tanjiro and Giyu that Genya and Tokito are dead after defeating the Upper Moon one, Tanjiro cries but keeps running. After reading the letter from Senjuro Rengoku, he learns that the dance of the fire god has 13 forms, but he only knows 12 of them. Even so, he promised to defeat Kibutsuji Muzan, relying only on what he knows for everyone's sake. Meanwhile, Ubuyashiki's son panics about not making it in time, and Kibutsuji Muzan will recover at this level. His sister informed him that the first troop of swordsmen was about to reach Muzan's location, and the second was on its way. Kiria ordered them to stand back and not approach him until the Hashira arrives. However, the first group arrived at the location but didn't know how to deal with him. Suddenly, Muzan came out in his new form and slaughters them all. Ubuyashiki's boy screams for backup, but it's too late because all are dead. Muzan mocks him, saying he brought him food to recover and plans to turn him into a demon. Kiria ordered the second group to stay back, or else they would just become food for Muzan to regain his stamina. He then mocks Tamayo and crushes her head. Yushiro senses it and gets furious. Back to Muzan, he kills the second group too, declaring he will wipe out the demon slayers himself tonight as the night of bloody murder begins. When Muzan came out slashing all the swordsmen, Ubuyashiki's leader froze, feeling the weight of all the deaths, and started blaming himself. One of the girls slapped him, telling him to stay strong and give orders. He quickly ordered everyone to rush to Muzan's place at once. Meanwhile, Obanai and Mitsuri, still fighting, standing, blamed themselves too for not doing anything, as all the Hashiras finished their battles and moved forward. Yet they were still fighting Nakimi, with no clue how to kill her. After that, we finally see Tanjiro and Giyu reach Muzan. Tanjiro was in shock. He was filled with rage for the first time as Muzan stared at him chillingly. At that moment, Tanjiro began remembering his family, who were killed by Muzan, his sister, who became a demon because of him, and his friends, who died fighting the demons he created, wanted to attack, but Giyu ordered him to stay calm. Muzan mocked Tanjiro, saying he should feel lucky to be alive and move on, expecting him to think that just a natural disaster caused his family's death. Yet Tanjiro, shocked, listened as Muzan continued, telling him nothing could bring them back, while claiming he was the one who had grown tired after dealing with the Demon Slayer Corps all those centuries. With rage burning in his eyes, Tanjiro shouted that Muzan was the only thing that should not be allowed to exist. After Tanjiro and Giyu face Muzan in his true form, Tanjiro feels a cold rage in his stomach like never before. He analyzes Muzan's moves, knowing that cutting off his head won't work, as they need to hold him off until sunrise, and to do that, he needs to hold him off until the Hashira arrive, while trying to force Muzan to show his movements so he can relay them to the others and block them. Suddenly, Muzan attacks with sharp, stretching arms, destroying the place. Tanjiro dodges with pure instinct and luck, trying to get closer, but as he does, Muzan slashes his right eye and tries to finish him, but Giyu grabs him. Muzan mocks them, saying only 3 Hashira are left, and the rest were killed by Upper Moon 4, Nakime. At that moment, we see Obanai and Mitsuri in front of Nakime, dead. Tanjiro pushes Giyu away, saying he doesn't want to risk Giyu's life, but he can't use his breaths properly and gets slammed into a wall. Muzan didn't hesitate as he attacked him. Just then, Mitsuri appears attacking Muzan from behind, and Obanai pulls Tanjiro back, ordering him to not get in the way. Muzan gets furious, screaming to Nakime how they're still alive. At that moment, we see Yushiro behind her, pushing his fingers in her head to control her with his cells, with rage in his eyes, screaming that Muzan's biggest mistake was taking Tamayo away, and swearing he will take revenge from him. As Mitsuri sees how angry Muzan is, she wishes Himejima were there to encourage her, saying she feels safe when he fights alongside them. However, we see a flashback where Yushiro explains to her how to use Upper Moon 4, Nakame, to fool Muzan into thinking all the Hashira were dead. Back to the fight, Tanjiro struggles to reach the others, while Muzan notices Yushiro behind Nakame and claims to kill him, so he continues controlling the Infinity Castle, trying to absorb his cells to take back control of Nakame. As both fight for control, Muzan was able to absorb Nakime's and Yushiro's cells and began taking the lead. The 3 Hashiras attack Muzan, distracting him, and this gives Yushiro a chance to regain control and turn the Infinity Castle against Muzan. But Muzan kills Nakame to stop them from using her powers. While Yushiro realizes the castle will collapse and everyone will be dead except Muzan, he keeps fighting to move everyone out safely. At that moment, Muzan keeps attacking, slashing Tanjiro and aiming to finish Mitsuri. But Tanjiro throws a dead swordsman's blade straight at Muzan's head, saving her and making Muzan angry for using these little annoying attacks. At last, thanks to Yushiro's effort, they escape the Infinity Castle and reach the surface alive, but the fight still doesn't end. After Tanjiro and the others escape the Infinity Castle and find themselves in a city, the Ubuyashiki leader says this place wasn't planned, even though he was far from the place they had predicted. Forcing Muzan out of the Infinity Castle and onto the surface still put him at a disadvantage, and asks how much time is left until dawn, and the answer was, there's still 1.5 long hours. Kiria was in disbelief at how long they would need to hold Muzan. Muzan, furious, breaks through the collapsing walls, knowing their plan to keep him until dawn and challenging them to do it if they can. And as he attacks, the Hashiras dodge his attacks. Obanai cut off his neck, but Muzan's head doesn't fall. He regenerates instantly. At that moment, the Hashiras panics as their plan to cut him into pieces fails if he can regenerate in an instant. As Muzan goes to finish them, swordsmen rush in to protect the Hashiras, taking the hits by their own bodies. They scream that it's their turn to protect those who always protected them. Just then, Tanjiro rushes to create a chance, but collapses, coughing blood, while Muzan reveals his blood is poison. Too much kills, and if they didn't die instantly, they would suffer so much that they would wish to die immediately instead. And Tanjiro has it in him. As Tanjiro suffers on the ground, Muzan coldly declares that Kamado Tanjiro is dead. After Muzan tells the Hashiras that Kamado Tanjiro is dead, far away, Nezuko's father appears in her dream, telling her to wake up and that Tanjiro is in danger. Nezuko stands up and runs, with Urokodaki chasing after her. Rengoku informed Kiria about Nezuko and asked what to do, who panics and orders them to bring her back. But suddenly, his father's spirit appears, telling him to let her go. One of the girls asks who to send, but the boy starts crying, saying there's no need because his father told him so. Back to Nezuko, she sees her father again, guiding her as she gets separated from Urokodaki. Meanwhile, Tanjiro is still suffering. The Hashiras attack Muzan, but he slashes them back. He says the Demon Slayer marks only helped them stay alive this long. If they didn't have it, they would be dead this time. Just then, Kanroji collapses, as Muzan's blood starts working on her like a poison. He goes to finish her, but Himejima arrives protecting her. Muzan seems shocked, while Sanemi appears and slices him off. But But Muzan heals again in an instant and attacks him, but Sanemi throws 4 bottles of oil and sets him on fire. Elsewhere, Murata carries Tanjiro away because Giyu asks him to save him. Tanjiro, fading, sees himself in his old clothes, holding an axe, just like the old days. As Tanjiro lies near death, his mind drifts into memories, while he sees Yoriichi, the original breath user, the user of sun breathing and the strongest demon slayer to ever live, sitting in silence. Though Tanjiro can't speak, he watches. Yoriichi begins talking, recalling his past, his mother, his brother, and how his father wanted to separate them. He was an unwanted child because of his mark, so Yoriichi ran away, day after day, until he found a lonely girl named Uta, whose family had died. He waited beside her till sunset, then offered to stay with her. She was shocked, but accepted. They lived together, married, and she became pregnant. One day, he left to prepare for the birth, but on the way back, he helped an old man who wasn't doing well and wanted to travel 3 mountains because his son was on the verge of death, but he returned too late, as he finds out that Uta and their unborn child got killed. For 10 days, Yoriichi sat beside their bodies in silence. A swordsman found him, who was chasing the demon. That day, Yoriichi realized he couldn't ignore demons, so he joined the demon slayers and taught them breath techniques, and his brother joined too. They called it the Golden Age, and one night, Yoriichi faced Muzan, confident, standing beside a woman we now know as Tamayo. At that moment, Yoriichi knew he was born to defeat him. After Yoriichi faced Muzan, he sensed violence emanating from him, so he knew he had to defeat him. Muzan claimed he had no interest in swordsmen who could use breathing techniques, and we all know he had already recruited Kokushibo, the twin brother of Yoriichi, who was called Michikatsu back then before becoming a demon. As Muzan attacked, Yoriichi dodged effortlessly and saw through his body, identifying 7 hearts and 5 brains. At that moment, Yoriichi perfected his 12 forms and created the 13th. He slashed Muzan in multiple places, unable to regenerate, holding his own head with his arm. Yoriichi knew then that his red blade had worked. Rather than finish him, Yoriichi asked Muzan what he thought life meant. Muzan then exploded into 1,800 pieces, and Yoriichi managed to slash 1,500 of them, but the vital parts escaped. Tamayo began to cry, wishing for Muzan's death. Yoriichi asked her to help him kill Muzan, and she accepted. After that, Yoriichi learned that his brother had become a demon. The demon slayers demanded he die in shame, but the young Ubuyashiki head stopped them. Yoriichi believed he was born to end Muzan, but he failed. A little girl tugged on his robes. Kamado asked him to lift her, and as he did, she smiled. Yoriichi began to cry, holding her in his arms. As Muzan's attacks grew fiercer, the Hashiras were pushed back, unable to keep up with Muzan's monstrous power after all the battles they faced and the injuries they got. And Kanroji struggled the most against it. She couldn't see his strikes, dodging only by instinct and luck. Because she was the weakest Hashira among them all, Muzan's slashes affected her more quickly than the other Hashira. But something felt wrong. Before she could react, Muzan slashed her from behind. At that moment, Obanai rushed to get her out of the fight as the others attacked Muzan all at once, giving Obanai a chance to take Kanroji and back off to leave her with the Kakushi to heal her wounds. While saying she had done enough and needed some rest, Kanroji said she hadn't done enough yet and could still help them out. Yet Obanai turned back, running toward Muzan to rejoin the fight, leaving her behind, while Kanroji cried out, begging to fight beside him, and asked him not to die. As Obanai ran back, thoughts filled his heart on how peaceful life could have been without demons, and how many people could have lived. We see his full face for the first time, the scar across his mouth exposed. He thought he first must die and swap his tainted body for a clean one. Only then he can tell her that he loves her, as he was planning to die while defeating Muzan, so he can be reborn in a clean body. As Obanai's full face is revealed, we see a scar slashed across his mouth. Back to his memories. He was born into a family of only women. He was the first male in 370 years, locked in a cage, treated kindly in a way that felt disgusting. Every night, he heard something big crawling, making him unable to sleep in fear. At 12, they brought him to a grand room where the truth revealed in front of him. He met the snake-bodied demon. Horrified, he knew this was the creature that had been keeping him from sleeping at night in fear. And he also knew his family made their livelihood from the stolen goods of the people who were killed by this snake demon, worshipped by his family who gives babies to her as a sacrifice so she can devours them instead. But she let Obanai to live because of his rare eyes, fascinated her, while she ordered them to cut his mouth so he can match hers, and they did. She drank his blood. At that time, he only wanted to live and planned to escape using a stolen hairpin and trusting only Kaburamaru, the snake that stayed with him those times. He fled, but the snake demon chased him. Just as death closed in, Rengoku saved him. Things went well until he met his surviving cousin, who cursed him, saying it was his fault everyone died. From that day, he vowed to kill demons and save others, but the guilt stayed. That's why he must kill Muzan and die. Only then he can be reborn in a pure body so he can tell Kanroji he loved her. As the fight between Obanai and Muzan continues, he struggles to dodge the deadly, relentless strikes, but he pushes on, so their allies' sacrifices can't be in vain. Nearby, Giyu drops his sword, his grip weakened by Muzan's poison. As Muzan moves in to finish him, Obanai and Himejima block the blow just in time. Giyu, emotional but resolute, rises again. He's a Hashira. He needs to stand up, his face looking tired and not far from crying. But he, Himejima, and Obanai attack Muzan from all different directions, arms, not giving him any time to reach them, as Muzan mocks them, declaring they'll all collapse within 5 minutes as the poison finishes them off. Just as hope fades, a cat leaps onto a rooftop. It was Tamayo's cat, carrying vials. It throws the antidote to the fighters below. Muzan slashes it down, furious, but it's too late. The antidote works on the Hashiras and the poison fades. Muzan rages, realizing Tamayo still defies him even in death. He calls them all obsessed freaks and begins tearing through the city. Obanai recalls a crow's report on Tokito when he knows he turned his blade red by gripping it tightly while having the mark and standing at death's edge. Obanai mirrors that he's in the same position, and finally he's awakened and the mark and his blade burns red, but that means he walks the path of death. As Obanai's blade burns red, he realizes that his body fails because he's out of breath and his vision is fading, his limbs numb, while only his hand can still grab the sword. As Muzan strikes, Obanai stands frozen until, in a flash, he soars upward, and Muzan's arm is sliced clean off. Muzan senses it wasn't Obanai who did that. It's something unseen. He was watching all the Hashira at that time. None of them struck him, or else he would have noticed and blocked it. He got another strike that definitely wasn't from the Hashiras, so he scans the battlefield and realizes 3 people are cloaked nearby, hidden by Tamayo's technique. With a swift slash, the veil breaks, revealing Kanao, Inosuke, and Zenitsu now joining the battle. Zenitsu's back still crying, while Obanai regaining control and slashing Muzan with his incomplete red blade, making Muzan's regeneration slow. The trio continues hiding using the same papers, frustrating Muzan, who calls their tactics pathetic tricks. Meanwhile, Himejima seizes the moment, making his weapon ignites red and strikes Muzan's shoulder, making him impressed. Sanemi and Giyu clash their blades, causing their own blades to turn red and launching a counterattack against Muzan when it's only 1 hour and 3 minutes until dawn. As Tanjiro was near death because Muzan poisoned him with his blood, Yushiro with the Kokushi tried to heal him, impressed by how Tanjiro refused to let go of his sword, even when he collapsed. At that moment, Tanjiro finally opened his eyes, knowing well what he needed to do. Back on the battlefield, the Hashiras fought desperately, yet they managed to deal some real damage to him while keeping him from escaping the city, as Sanemi used Tamayo's cloaking technique against Muzan, while Himejima tried to see through Muzan like he did Kokushibo, as he saw multiple hearts and brains shifting locations, while using his transparent world, even though he's blind. He called Obanai, urging him to see it too. Obanai unlocked the transparent world. Feeling cornered, while seeing through Muzan, he knew why they couldn't kill him before, even after cutting off his head. Muzan exploded with rage, destroying the battlefield. The Hashiras and the others lay scattered and bloodied. Kanao stood frozen as Muzan tried to finish her, but suddenly, a blazing wall of Hinokami Kagura erupted. Tanjiro cut Muzan's arm, protecting Kanao, and leaving it to Kokushi, and turning back to Muzan with angry eyes, Muzan saw Yoriichi's ghost in Tanjiro. As Tanjiro tells Muzan to put an end to this fight as the final battle begins. While Tanjiro was facing death, he saw the memories of his ancestor Sumiyoshi Kamado with Yoriichi, and noticed small mistakes in his wrist angle, footwork, breathing rhythm, and unnecessary movements. He realized this after comparing them with Yoriichi's flawless demonstration, which he had once shown to Suyako before leaving, and how Sumiyoshi watched and remembered every step. Before Yoriichi left, he gave his earrings to Sumiyoshi, as he shouted that Yoriichi is not a man of no worth because he protected them. Yoriichi smiled and waved goodbye, after Sumiyoshi promised him to pass down his sword style and earning. Even though Tanjiro isn't from Yoriichi's family, he had his earrings, his sword style, and his mark. By this way, back in the fight, Tanjiro realized all 12 forms are connected. If he uses them one after another, he can create the 13th form and kill Muzan. But he has 2 big problems. He's not as talented as his dad or Yoriichi, and he doesn't know how to stop Muzan from exploding. Still, he keeps fighting. Muzan sees Yoriichi's ghost in Tanjiro and gets angry. His body changes, attacking in crazy ways, but Tanjiro keeps going, linking every move together toward the final form. As Tanjiro and Muzan kept fighting, Muzan noticed that Tanjiro's blade had turned red without Nezuko's help. Even though Tanjiro was close to death, he did it on his own, but Muzan didn't care. He said it's still not close to Yoriichi's level, claiming that Yoriichi's blade and movements weren't like this. They were far beyond what Tanjiro is using against him. Tanjiro had already linked 6 forms, but he was badly hurt. Still, he didn't stop, as Muzan couldn't understand why he couldn't finish off a human who was tired and poisoned, and started questioning what was going on with him. He thought that Tanjiro was simply getting stronger, only to find out that Tanjiro's speed stayed the same, while Muzan was getting slower. That's when he realized Tamayo must have done something to him. He tried to ask her, but she refused to tell him, so he dug deeper into her memories. We then see how Tamayo, Shinobu, and Yushiro made a special drug. If it didn't turn Muzan into a human, it would age him 50 years per minute. By now, Muzan had aged 9,000 years, while the dawn was still 59 minutes away. Tanjiro burned with determination, keeping pressure on Muzan, using every sun-breathing technique on Muzan from all directions. He had now linked all 12 forms, and had to repeat them again and again until sunrise. As Yushiro and the Kokushi rushed to the injured Hashira to heal them, Yushiro ran to Himejima and was shocked. He had lost so much blood, so he knew that without the strongest Hashira, Tanjiro can't hold Muzan until dawn. He started crying, begging Himejima to stay alive and protect Tanjiro, while doing everything he could to heal him. Back at the fight, Tanjiro tried to use all 12 forms to cut Muzan's hearts and brains. He wanted to enter the transparent world, but he was running out of oxygen, and his vision started going black. And as Muzan tries to kill him, suddenly, Obanai saved him again, pulling him away from Muzan's attack, and seeing Obanai's face was badly cut, but he didn't stop. Tanjiro thought Obanai got those injuries from protecting him against Muzan, but Obanai claimed he had received them earlier, when Muzan lost control and slashed all the Hashira at once. He used his snake, Kaburamaru, to know Muzan's attacks and dodged them and threw Tanjiro away while Muzan got angry, destroying all over the place. He did get angrier seeing someone avoid him without even seeing and using a snake. Then Tanjiro noticed something strange. Scars on Muzan's body, the same ones Yoriichi gave him long ago. Muzan still couldn't heal them. That's when Tanjiro realized Yoriichi was still guiding him toward victory. When Muzan first faced Yoriichi, he looked weak with no killing intent, yet Yoriichi still cut him, leaving wounds that burned like the sun even after centuries, as he proved that Yoriichi was the true monster. However, when Muzan heard there was still only 40 minutes until dawn, Muzan decided to run away, trying to escape the battlefield in an instant. Tanjiro was in disbelief, as he wasn't predicting this cowardly move from the Demon King himself. He screams to Obanai, informing him as he couldn't see, but Obanai wasn't surprised, knowing that Muzan has no pride, only the instinct to survive. At that moment, Tanjiro chases him, reaching a place where the Kokushi lies dead. Muzan crushes their bodies without care, enraging Tanjiro, who throws swords at him, doing everything to stop him. Muzan says the blade slashes are weak, but deep thrusts hurt more. Suddenly, Obanai joins in, stabbing his red blade into Muzan's neck, forcing him down. Tanjiro hands Obanai the paper to turn invisible and fight properly. Obanai uses it as both know they can't let Muzan escape at this point, while Muzan, gasping and drained, tries to flee, but they block his path. As his stamina was at its limit, regeneration wasn't as easy as it was before. Then, far away, we see Nezuko running as her right eye turns back to human. As Nezuko runs toward the city, she starts turning human. Her face begins to change as memories flood back to when her family got killed by Muzan that night and gave her blood to turn her into a demon, but he thought she'd die, saying he can't create a demon that can conquer the sun. After seeing her suffering on the ground from the huge amount of blood he gave her, while she remembers Tanjiro, her promise with Tanjiro to protect her no matter what, their friends, and everything they've been through. Crying, she recalls her name while her eyes turn normal as Nezuko is fully human again. Back in the fight, Tanjiro battles on, still holding Kibutsuji Muzan back from escaping alone, while Muzan senses the Hashira are still alive thanks to Yushiro's help. As he hears there's only 35 minutes until dawn, he decides to end the fight here, as there's no need to put himself in more danger anymore. He tries to explode like he did to escape Yoriichi back then. Tanjiro warns Obanai about it, while panicking about stopping him, because even Yoriichi couldn't manage to do it. But Muzan suddenly can't split himself apart as he was shocked. Tamayo appears, revealing she poisoned him with 4 drugs. Thanks to the third one that destroyed his cells, the fourth one started affecting him, mocking him by saying the death he feared the most is now before his eyes. Tamayo didn't need to be stronger than Muzan. She just had to make him weak. As he did anything to survive, she was able to do everything to kill him. The slashes from the red blades didn't work on Muzan, as all the Demon Slayer's red blades were meaningless compared to Yoriichi's red blade, and he didn't experience fatigue from regeneration. Though the red blades were useless, the drugs made them deadly. However, Muzan didn't expect that Lady Tamayo would be capable of creating such powerful drugs in such a short amount of time as a demon, pushing him near death. Trying to break down the drugs, Muzan unleashed a massive shockwave, knocking down Tanjiro and Obanai and destroying everything around. Tanjiro couldn't even move or think. The blast even reached Ubuyashiki's hidden place, who was shocked at Muzan's power despite his weakened state. Muzan tried to escape again but was stopped by Inosuke. Too tired to use his powers, Muzan faced Inosuke, who demanded he pay for everyone he hurt or killed. As Muzan attacked, he was so close to finishing him, but Zenitsu protected him and joined to hold him off. At that moment, Tanjiro forced his red blade into his body to stop the shock, while Muzan couldn't even lift his arms as he sensed the Hashira's return, still standing again and again until their last breath. As Inosuke and Zenitsu fight Muzan to hold him till the dawn, Zenitsu uses his 7th form, but it doesn't cut deep because he was definitely tired, because he doesn't have enough stamina, and one of his legs is dead, making his attack too shallow because he doesn't unlock the red blade's state yet, making all the wounds not deep enough to block Muzan. Also, Inosuke attacks too, but Muzan hits him with a shock, making him unable to move. And, as Muzan tries to finish him, Tanjiro joins by cutting off his arms protecting Inosuke, and keeps fighting. Inosuke gets back up to help, and Zenitsu slashes Muzan from behind, but again the slash isn't deep though he's too tired to move fast. The same attacks repeat until Tanjiro pushes Muzan into a corner, holding him with his sword to the wall. At that moment, Muzan tries to strike back, but Mitsuri grabs and destroys his arms before he can land the hit. But Muzan hits her, then goes back to Tanjiro. But Sanemi cuts Muzan's arms and pins it to the wall. Suddenly, Muzan then tries to eat Tanjiro with his head, but Obanai jumps in and sacrifices himself. As the Hashira screams to hold it a little bit more as the first light of dawn appears, shining across the battlefield, and bringing Muzan's death closer. As Muzan sees the sun rising, he screams, launching another shock attack, destroying the place and throwing everyone away, except Tanjiro, who loses his left arm but keeps holding his sword until he crumbles away. Trying his best not to let go of his sword and to keep pinning Muzan to the wall with just one hand, he attempts to make his sword turn red, but he can't, as Muzan continues unleashing his shocking attacks, pushing Tanjiro back and injuring him even more. But suddenly, Giyu grabs the sword and helps him, turning it red and pushing Muzan to the wall. Muzan starts bleeding as the sun burns him. Then, he transforms into a giant baby to escape. He absorbs Tanjiro and Giyu, but Tanjiro pushes Giyu out, staying inside Muzan alone. Muzan runs while burning, but the Kakushi's helps by blocking his path, following Ubuyashiki's plan to stop him without more deaths. Sanemi cuts off Muzan's arms, and Himejima wraps chains around his head, dragging him into the sun with Kakushi's help. At that moment, Himejima's chain breaks while the giant baby tries to dig underground, but Tanjiro's red blade inside him forces him to spit blood. Giyu, Sanemi, and Obanai keep attacking, while giant baby screams one last time before the sun finally burns him to ashes. As Muzan's monstrous form burns in the sun, everyone celebrates, crying in relief, thinking the battle is over. But something feels wrong. At the same time, Himejima lies dying. He orders the Kakushi to leave him and not use the valuable medicine, as it's too late for him, and it would only be wasted. Instead, he tells them to go to the younger ones. That is his final wish. He remembers the children who got killed, revealing they tried to protect him despite being blind. They apologize, saying they didn't run. They tried to grab weapons or help, and some chased Kaigaku. Himejima dies with tears and a smile. Elsewhere, Obanai cradles Mitsuri. She says she can't feel her body, meaning she's near death. Obanai gently confesses his love, and Mitsuri, crying, asks if they can be together in the next life. He promises to protect her then, for sure. Sanemi sees visions of his family in a peaceful place. His mother, full of guilt, refuses to cross over. Just as Sanemi decides to follow her to hell, his father throws him back, saying his time didn't come yet, because he is his son. Sanemi wakes up alive, while Inosuke and Zenitsu are being treated. Giyu searches, only to find Tanjiro motionless, not breathing. Everyone breaks down in tears. Giyu holds his hand, apologizing for not protecting him, as Nezuko arrives at their place. As the ancestor of demons is now on the brink of death, Muzan crumbles in the sun while he recalls his birth, how his heart stopped several times in his mother's belly, also how he was born not breathing, thought to be dead, until he cried from struggle, while he knew that all the creatures will face death unexpectedly, like what Ubuyashiki said to him, and that is what he fears the most. Knowing the sunlight would end him, Muzan makes a final move. He refuses to vanish, so he pours all his blood, power, and emotions into Tanjiro's lifeless body. His heart has stopped, but his cells remain. Believing that Tanjiro can conquer the sun because he shares the same blood with his sister Nezuko, and because she conquered the sun, he could too, while saying if it works, Tanjiro will become the strongest king of demons because he wields the same breath as Yoriichi, the only man Muzan ever feared, leaving everything to him while he vanished. Back to the battle scene, Tanjiro's eyes snap open, demonic red. His face and arm heal instantly. Only the Kakushi, while crying, noticed him, and he was surprised. However, he attacks the Kakushi in a blur, but Giyu protects him just in time, as Kamado Tanjiro is now the new demon king, and not only that, but to become the strongest demon to ever live. After Tanjiro becomes the new king of demons, Giyu orders the Kakushi to get away from him, while Tanjiro attacks another Kakushi, but the sunlight starts burning him like any other demon. At that moment, Giyu shouts for help, ordering the others to bring their swords as he informs them that Tanjiro turned into a demon and they must kill him before he kills someone. While Inosuke and Zenitsu, the only remaining demon slayers standing after the fight with Muzan, were in shock at what they had just heard. Giyu's plan was to pin the demon Tanjiro under the sunlight to burn him. Tanjiro tries to hide in the dark, but Giyu pins him down with his sword while begging him to die as Tanjiro. Suddenly, he saw Tanjiro conquering the sun and slashes Giyu in his mouth. Just as he's about to finish him, Inosuke stops him, but Tanjiro attacks him, while Zenitsu, emotionless, breaks down, saying it's too much, and everyone is too weak to fight after the battle with Muzan. As Tanjiro charges at Inosuke, Inosuke says Tanjiro is like his brother and promises to stop him if needed so they can all walk to the right path. But as he remembers Tanjiro's kindness, Inosuke hesitates. With his blade near Tanjiro's neck, he can't cut him, saying he just can't do it while crying because they were buddies after all. As Inosuke hesitates to kill Tanjiro and couldn't cut off his head because they were buddies after all, Nezuko runs to hug him, but Tanjiro, who is now a demon, can't feel anything. He digs his fingers and teeth into her. Nezuko cries cries, begging for forgiveness, saying she didn't understand his pain while he suffered alone. Tanjiro shows no emotion, screaming while hurting her. Zenitsu, Inosuke, and the Kikuchi rush to pull him away from her, but he unleashes a shockwave, throwing them all back. Tanjiro now looks like Muzan, with bones sprouting from his back, and his movements were exactly similar to how Kibutsuji Muzan was fighting. He attacks Zenitsu, but Giyu blocks him. Giyu panics, realizing nothing can defeat Tanjiro now, not even sunlight or red blades. Tanjiro fires another shockwave from his mouth, but Nezuko redirects it with her hand, making it all bloody. At that moment, Giyu notices Tanjiro didn't kill Nezuko and realizes he's still fighting inside to not hurt them. Meanwhile, Yushiro watches helplessly because of the sunlight. Just then, Kanao runs in, remembering the medicine that Shinobu gave her, the same they used on Nezuko. Kanao uses her final form to inject it into Tanjiro's back. She gets hit at the same time, but she succeeds, while Tanjiro finally starts to wake up. While everyone tries to save Tanjiro, inside his mind he cries, wanting to go home with Nezuko. Muzan holds him back, saying there's no point, everyone is dead. But Tanjiro says their memories live on, and Nezuko is still alive. Muzan lies, saying Nezuko is dead, but Tanjiro knows the truth. His family's hands guide him up. As Muzan continues saying everyone hates him, but Tanjiro can smell their worry and wants to apologize for what he did. Muzan tries again, warning he'll die soon from the mark, but Tanjiro chooses to die human. Muzan screams, calling him trash, but the Hashira's hands lift him. Everyone is guiding him up to save him now from Muzan, and Nezuko's hand reaches for him. Muzan begs him to stay and carry his will, but Tanjiro says those people risked their life to protect others, not letting them fall in the same pain they've been through, while Hands pulls him up as Muzan begs not to be left behind. However, Tanjiro wakes up, surrounded by everyone. Nezuko cries in relief, Zenitsu yells at him, and Giyu is barely standing. Tanjiro finds Kanao alive, both smiling in tears. Yushiro hides, crying with Tamayo's hairpin, saying, "It's finally over," as the fight with Muzan is finally over forever. 3 months after defeating Kibutsuji Muzan and saving Tanjiro Kamado from becoming the new king of demons, we see Tanjiro still resting and healing, with Nezuko sitting next to him, as well as Zenitsu and Inosuke sleeping beside him. And the world is now free of demons, though it came at the cost of many lives. Tanjiro's hand has become wrinkled like an old man's. He can only move it up and down but can't feel anything. He also lost sight in his right eye, which had regenerated like his arm when he became a demon. After that, we see Yushiro explains that Tanjiro only returned to being human because of 2 things: biting Nezuko first and receiving Shinobu's medicine. Without either, it wouldn't have worked. He calls them lucky and thanks Tanjiro before leaving. As he walks away, Tanjiro asks him not to die, since he's the only one left who can keep Tamayo's memory alive, and wishes him well, still feeling worried about him. At the Ubuyashiki estate, we see Sanemi and Giyu meet with Kirya and his 2 sisters for the final Hashira meeting, as the Demon Slayer Corps is being disbanded. They thank them for their efforts, while Giyu says that all their ancestors, including his father, would be proud of their work, which makes the children cry and thank him with deep emotion. After the demon hunters defeat Muzan, we see Tanjiro still healing, while Tengen and his wives visit him, joined by Senjuro Rengoku, who was excited to meet Tanjiro while pulling his father, Shinjuro Rengoku, along, as he was embarrassed to show his face after what happened last time between them. As Shinjuro thanks Tanjiro for holding Kyojuro's hilt during battle, saying that Kyojuro is surely happy seeing him doing that. Then, the Hayotoko Brigade arrives to check on Tanjiro, along with the Kikuchis too. That's when Inosuke sneaks away from the room and heads to the kitchen, while no one, in a room full of people, noticed him sneaking, where he finds Aoi cooking. So he steals food, thinking he's invisible, but Aoi notices him, and yells at him to stop stealing as she gives him a full plate, telling him he can eat as much as he wants, whenever he wants. In that moment, we see Inosuke start falling in love with her. Elsewhere, we see Kanao looking at the blossoming tree, and Tanjiro joins her, and they both begin falling in love too. Tanjiro asks her about her vision and wounds, and she replies that she's fine. She didn't lose all her vision. She also says that Sanemi visited her and gave her Obanai's snake a moment ago, as we see everything goes fine now. After Sanemi visited Kanao and gave her Obanai's snake, he met Nezuko on his way to leave, seeing her speak to him normally for the first time. So he apologized for how he treated her back in season 1, and how things didn't go as planned as he was sleeping after Muzan was defeated and Tanjiro became a demon. But Nezuko didn't mind. She kept speaking kindly, saying she's been sleeping for 2 years and that she loves sleeping, reminding him of his younger brother Genya, who loves sleeping too. As he tapped her head and told her to take care, he smiles normally for the first time before he leaves. Genya was right. He is the sweetest brother in the world. Zenitsu was hiding nearby, spying on them as he got jealous for her. Later, Nezuko and Tanjiro meet with Giyu and Urokodaki, then go to visit the graves, placing flowers for everyone who died. Zenitsu started getting tired after seeing how long it would take to place the flowers, only to turn around and see Inosuke throwing them all over the graves with no care or respect. However, Zenitsu didn't change his crying attitude, as they go to their family home, praying to their family graves, and cleans the place, showers, and eat together in joy until night. Time flows into the modern age, and the Demon Slayer story is officially complete now. Did you know that all the Demon Slayer characters were reincarnated after Muzan was defeated? As time flows into the modern age, we see a boy named Kanada, who looks exactly like Kanao, trying to wake up his brother Sumihiko, who looks just like Tanjiro. Kanada was 16, and Sumihiko was 15, confirming that Tanjiro and Kanao got married after the battle. Then we see Yoshiteru, a boy who resembles Zenitsu but with black hair, reading a book about the Demon Slayer Corps' journey, written by Zenitsu himself, who decided to become a writer by documenting their full story against Muzan, while his sister Tuko kicks him from behind, scolding him to stop reading the book and to focus on exams that he failed. Clearly, those two reflect Zenitsu and Nezuko, meaning Yoshiteru and Tuko are their descendants. Even though she thinks the stories are just lies, Yoshiteru still believes in the history of demons and the sacrifices made, especially reincarnation, saying that everyone who fought against demons is now living a happy life. But Tuko just didn't care as she take her phone, and we see Uzui appears on TV as a 20-yo famous gymnastics athlete, still rude as usual, showing that even in a modern world, they still got their own personality. After Yoshiteru expresses his belief in Zenitsu's book, his sister brushes it off as nonsense. Then, on the news, Yoshiteru sees a researcher who looks exactly like Inosuke, his reincarnation. The researcher had been studying the blue spider lily for 7 months. The flower blooms only 2 to 3 times a year during the day, which is why Muzan never found it. Even after spending centuries searching with his demons, they all withered due to a careless mistake, and the team apologized on TV. Yoshiteru felt bad, but his sister told him the researcher was actually a man. He instantly changed his tone, saying they should just die, as his sister says he just like Zenitsu. Later, a woman walks by with twin babies, the reincarnations of Tokito and his brother. Kanai and Shinobu also pass by, their scent making Yoshiteru fall in love. Meanwhile, his sister meets Kanada and they click immediately, clearly in love. On the way to school, they pass Himejima's reincarnation, still huge and intimidating. Finally, they go to eat at a shop run by Mitsuri and Obanai's reincarnations. Kanada says someone stared at Mitsuri, and Obanai threw a knife at him. That someone was Yoshiteru, and while she looks angry at him, Yushiro yells in his own defense, but everyone knows it's true. Back to the Kamado family, we see Sumihiko just waking up, already late. He blames his brother for not waking him up and quickly gets dressed. He jumps out the window, showing off his incredible flexibility. As he runs, he passes by the house of the reincarnations of Zenitsu's grandfather and Urokodaki, who both yell at him for doing this every single day. He keeps running and passes the 3 sisters who were always seen at Shinobu's hospital. They call him the Running Man, as he zips by again. As Sumihiko continues his dash, a police car suddenly blocks his way, but because he was already too late and couldn't stop due to his speed, he dodges it using his flexible body and apologizes. But the cops turn out to be the reincarnations of Genya and Sanemi, who get angry after realizing this is the same kid they've received 7 reports about. While Sumihiko questions if he'll make it in time, he passes by the reincarnation of Giyu and his 2 friends. The girl among them seems to be in love with Giyu. Meanwhile, a high school student pulls out a picture of a beautiful woman. Yoshiteru explains that this painting was made by a mysterious man, none other than Yushiro, the former demon. He continues to paint the same beautiful woman, Tamayo. Despite his fame, Yushiro refuses to give interviews back to Sumihiko, who meets the reincarnation of Kyojuro, now named Tojuro. He's also late, having stayed up until 4 a.m. As they run to school, the police follow Sumihiko for his reckless actions, telling him to stop, but he doesn't hear them because he's listening to Tojuro, who tries to convince Sumihiko to join a sports team because of his flexibility, which would be a waste if he didn't use it. As we know, Sumihiko is very lazy. He'd rather sleep than join any school club. As they approach the gate, we see the reincarnation of the legendary Murata, who wants to close the gates early, 3 minutes before the bell, because he's tired of their last-minute rushes. But like always, they jump over the gate and get in, leaving Murata in shock, while they just walk away inside. As always, the police finally reach the gate and, with an intimidating look, ask Murata for the time. Meanwhile, the reincarnation of Inosuke is just as wild as ever. After learning he might be fired from his research job, he considers living alone in the mountains instead, thinking how peaceful it would be to leave everything behind. In the final scene, Kanao answers a phone call and learns her son has caused trouble. We then see Kamado's Hanafuda earrings and photos of the fallen Demon Slayer Corps, now smiling in peace as the world is finally free from demons.